more miracles. At the training ground. The training ground, huh? Can't get in now. The gate's locked. And Alcade has the key. Okay. I wonder what his deal is. Whatever it is, the Seven Stars are way out of our league.
surge. Should I leave her be and push on for now? A normal guy. That's a surprise. Do you know how to get into the training ground? So, you're here to die too. Suit yourself then. Take the path on that side, beyond the pigeon loft, and the skywalk along the cliff. 3 burning beacon towers. 7 swordsmen. The leader. I don't know his name. They call him Alcade. They have the key you need. Much appreciated. Beware of the 7 stars in their sword formation. Together, they have slain countless evildoers. But now, they're dark and hollow, just like their faces. The faceless part. Is it caused by perfect transcension? Yes. It takes away your heart, leaving only a husk. They put you to sleep. And when you wake up, you're not human anymore. You mean you're... My face is evaporating, right? Never mind it. I poisoned myself. And death will claim me long before I transform into one of those things. Lily, let me die in peace.
Nothing can separate us. Not even in death. I will be waiting on the other side. 总不会只有逃避吧？不过，本来也没什么差别。没有人比你更清楚。组织从来不会丢失它的力量。
人人都有面具，日耀。
我等不过是戴在脸上吧。
他留了你等性命，是为了什么秘密？这世上只有一种人会绝对保守秘密。
那个镇上发生的事情太恐怖了，这个时候非要过去。
干了这酒，我们交钱一笔勾销。
行走江湖，从来就不是什么快意恩仇，而是忍耐、煎熬。我们只要等待就够了。
钓鱼的时候，除了等待，还能做什么呢？
Faceless is here!
Don't go up there. Turn back before it's too late.
Phantom Blade Zero is a highly ambitious, story-driven action role-playing game that fuses brutal, real-time combat with the elegant martial artistry of traditional wuxia cinema, all framed within a hauntingly atmospheric world that blends Eastern fantasy with dark steampunk influences. Developed and self-published by S-Game, a Chinese studio transitioning from its roots in mobile game development to premium AAA console production, Phantom Blade Zero is being built using Unreal Engine 5 and currently targets a release window of late 2025 or early 2026 for PlayStation 5 and Windows PC, with Xbox Series X/S support still unconfirmed. The game aims to position itself as a genre-defining title, something akin to a spiritual fusion of Sekiro. Shadows Die Twice, Bloodborne, Ghost of Tsushima, and the classic Chinese wuxia films of the Shaw Brothers era, but with its own fresh metaphysical twist. The story follows Soul, a legendary assassin and once loyal enforcer of a secretive and possibly ancient organization called the Order, which operates in the shadows, pulling strings that shape kingdoms and spiritual realms alike. After being betrayed and mortally wounded during a high-stakes mission, Soul is subjected to a forbidden, experimental, mystical treatment that grants him temporary survival, but at a tremendous cost. He now has only 66 days to live. These 66 days serve not only as the narrative's emotional countdown, but are also said to influence gameplay and world evolution over time, subtly shifting elements like enemy behavior, weather patterns, NPC dialogue, and ambient music as the clock winds down. With limited time and a web of treachery to unravel, Soul sets off on a desperate and bloody journey through the Phantom world, a strange and broken semi-open realm where spiritual decay, lost memories, and ancient powers collide. Gameplay unfolds across a world divided into several interconnected zones, each containing its own mainline story arcs, side content, optional bosses, and unlockable traversal tools. These regions offer a mixture of open-ended paths and more curated linear levels reminiscent of Sekiro or Demon's Souls. Players can explore massive areas such as bamboo forest graveyards haunted by lost warriors, windswept cliffside shrines struck by endless lightning, once glorious temples overrun with flesh puppets, and cursed mountain villages where spectral lanterns float ominously in blood-red mist. Environmental diversity is core to the game's identity. Dynamic weather, ambient world states, shifting time-of-day cycles, and supernatural anomalies all affect both aesthetics and gameplay. From enemies that gain elemental buffs in storms, to puzzle routes that only open during dusk or dawn. Hidden areas, shortcuts, and lore fragments can often only be reached through vertical traversal mechanics, such as wall running, spirit dashing, pole vaults, and high-speed glides enabled by tethered hooks and chai-based bursts. The combat system, which has garnered enormous buzz from early demos and trailers, is one of the most sophisticated and stylish seen in an ARPG to date. Phantom Blade Zero emphasizes precision timing, flow-state combat rhythm, and visceral cinematic choreography. Players wield a customizable combination of melee weapons, typically a primary blade and a secondary phantom edge, which can include chain blades, throwing fans, explosive talismans, and cursed spears. These can be swapped or fused depending on player preference. A resource called Sha Qi builds up during combat, allowing the execution of power surges, dramatic, screen-shaking finishers, or chained ultimates with unique effects per weapon type. The Ghost Step mechanic allows players to counterattack or reposition instantly by narrowly dodging enemy blows, similar in feel to a parry-dodge hybrid. These systems promote aggressive, flowing, momentum-based engagement rather than stamina-restricted tactics. Unlike most Souls-likes, Phantom Blade Zero encourages overwhelming your enemies with pressure, but punishes carelessness with brutal counterattacks. Enemy design in Phantom Blade Zero is just as deep as its player combat toolkit. Each class of foe, from lone swordsmen, corrupted monks, and order assassins to grotesque beasts shaped by spiritual rot, uses bespoke AI that reacts to player behavior. In the punishing Hellwalker difficulty, enemies will actively bait, flank, and fake out players, reading inputs like a PvP match. Bosses in particular are multi-phased, evolving both mechanically and narratively across a fight. One standout boss revealed during the S-Party 2025 gameplay showcase was Wanjun Copper Maul, a terrifying brute clad in rusted armor who wielded a segmented iron guandao that telescopes, twists, and explodes mid-swing. The fight emphasized environment interaction, positioning, and cinematic transitions. Phases were punctuated by flashbacks and dynamic camera sweeps, deepening the connection between gameplay and story. Another boss, Red Wraith, was a high-speed assassin wrapped in flames and silk, who teleported through shadows and used chain blade mid-air assaults. These boss fights serve as critical narrative moments, often reflecting Soul's past decisions and offering revelations tied to the game's central mystery. The world of Phantom Blade Zero is steeped in metaphysical lore. Memory plays a huge role, with fragments of Soul's life scattered across the world, some lost, some corrupted, and some stolen. These memories are recovered through gameplay and puzzle solving, revealing branching narrative outcomes and unlocking deeper paths. The game incorporates interactive relics, hidden mural puzzles, and martial records, ancient documents that describe legendary duels or techniques, which are hidden in cursed corners of the map. Choices made in dialogue, combat, and exploration directly affect the story's progression and even enemy placement. Some areas will be accessible only in certain timelines or phases of memory, similar to mechanics seen in games like Control or Nier Automata, where world logic is rewritten mid-game. Soul's 66-day limit may also influence enemy hostility and visual hallucinations as time runs low, increasing the tension as players near the story's climax. Phantom Blade Zero's presentation leans heavily into a style best described as Kung Fu Punk, a unique visual identity that blends traditional Chinese martial arts aesthetics with dystopian machinery, alchemical cybernetics, and gothic horror. The world is filled with haunting mechanical constructs powered by corrupted chai, steampunk prosthetics fueled by cursed blood, and ancient shrines repurposed as dark laboratories of arcane experimentation. Character design draws influence from dynastic Chinese fashion, Taoist mysticism, and hellish folklore. Enemies wear masks of bone and jade, stitched together by spiritual wires, and many of them exhibit inhuman traits like multi-jointed limbs, vaporous torsos, or parasitic armor that reacts to damage in real time. Cutscenes use motion capture, performed by masters of Shaolin, Ime, and Southern Lion martial arts schools, creating incredibly fluid transitions between gameplay and cinematic beats. Everything from parries to fatalities is choreographed with the rhythm and energy of a Hong Kong wuxia film, fast, deliberate, and emotionally intense. Every region contains non-linear secrets, many of which are hidden behind optional quests or NPC interactions that evolve over time. There are mysterious shrines where players can rewrite parts of their spiritual build, underground duel pits that unlock new Phantom Edge blueprints, and cursed forges that allow transmutation of gear. Some NPCs may appear helpful, offering side quests or trades, but later be revealed to be constructs of the Order's memory manipulation, causing players to question the reality of every ally. Optional co-op functionality has been teased through asynchronous online components in the game's endgame mode known as Phantom Hunt, where players can challenge others' ghosts, leave behind echoes of their choices, or team up to tackle elite, procedurally evolving bounty targets. Despite this, the core campaign remains entirely single-player focused, with a heavy emphasis on replayability. The game supports multiple endings, New Game Plus with remix modifiers, and a branching morality system tied to NPC alliances and combat mercy options. Now you can enjoy the screenshots without any interruption. Enjoy!